All right, we're going to get started. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. My name is Amber. I'm assistant manager here and also the coordinator for the Left Bank Books Foundation, which makes these events possible. This is Left Bank Books presents the founder of the Gentle Barn Foundation, Ellie Lax, who is here to discuss her new book, Cow Hug Therapy: How the Animals at the Gentle Barn Taught Me About Life, Death, and Everything in Between. Some notes before we begin. Today's event is possible because of your support. When you support Left Bank Books and the Left Bank Books Foundation, your money goes directly into the local economy, funding your streets, parks, and more. It also helps writers get the support they deserve and allows us to produce events such as this. So thank you all for shopping local and supporting this event. We also want to extend our welcome to our virtual audience this evening. Thank you for joining us from afar. We at Left Bank have a fantastic calendar of events coming your way. This Saturday morning, we will host Michelle Schaub for a celebrity storytime event here in our children's section. It will look very different. Not all these chairs. Next Monday, June 17th, we will mark the 70th anniversary of Brown v. Board of Education with award-winning educator Dr. Tiffany C. Anderson and her new book, Building Parent Capacity in High Poverty Schools, Actions for Authentic Impact, also here in the store. Also, there's still time for you to pre-order. Oh, actually, I didn't update this. We just sold out for the Ellen Hilderbrand signing line event that's going to happen here on June 19th. You can still buy the book, but the signing line is now full. I should have scrapped that, sorry. But there is still time for you to pre-order Evie Oddly's new book, All About Evie, before their signing line here on June 27th. A full calendar of our upcoming events can be found on our website. There is sure to be something for everyone. So about tonight's title, Cow Hug Therapy. Cow Hug Therapy is the inspirational story of the compassionate and wise animals of the Gentle Barn and how they became a therapeutic salve for countless guests and mentors for all of us in how to live and die. This colorful and compelling narrative introduces the healing maidens of the barnyard, each with a unique story of being rescued from trauma and treated with love and respect. A testament to empathy and the mission to heal animals, people, and the planet, Cow Hug Therapy serves as a beacon of hope for all seeking healing and connection. About tonight's speaker, Ellie Lax is the founder of the Gentle Barn Foundation, a national organization that rescues and rehabilitates unwanted animals and heals people with histories of trauma. She is an animal communicator, TEDx speaker, educator, and author. Ellie lives at the Gentle Barn's California location with her partner, Jay, who runs the organization with her. They have 3 children and hundreds of animals. Would you all please help me in warmly welcoming Ellie Lax for Left Bank Books.
Thank you so much. You know, my publisher booked this for tonight. And so, we'd never heard of this store, and they're like, it's gonna be at this bookstore, okay, great. But this whole week, every time anyone would find out that we were here, they kept saying, oh my God, it's such an amazing store, it's such an amazing store. And being here, I can see why. And it's a deep honor to be here.
Thank you.
And hearing you talk about all your future events, I'm like, I wish we lived here. I would come to all of them. Thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Coming out in the middle of the week on an evening. I'm sure you're all exhausted from your day, and I appreciate you being here. I wrote this book My first book was written 10 years ago, came out 10 years ago. And I knew I had a story in me because there's so many animals and we're surrounded by stories everywhere we go because in our work. But I was approached by an agent from New York who said, I've been following the Gentle Barn and I think you should write a book. I was like, oh my God, great. I have so many stories about the animals. And she said, that's great, but I think you should start with your own story. And I'm like, I don't really want to. And she said, no, you can tell stories of the animals, but you have to explain, like, why are you doing this? So why are you the crazy lady with 200 animals? Why have you risked everything to do this and sacrifice so much? There's a reason there. So I said, okay, fine. So the first book is called My Gentle Barn, Creating a Sanctuary Where Animals Heal and Children Learn to Hope. And it's the story of my childhood and why animals saved me and starting the Gentle Barn and meeting Jay and our love story and the founding animals. And I got that out of the way. But now the second book is something I am so excited about because it's not about us so much, but it's about these animals. Jay and I have a front row seat watching who these animals are and how they live and how they love and how they raise their babies and how intelligent they are. And most people don't live with 200 rescued farm animals. Most people don't see cows form a circle to support one another. And we have seen extraordinary things. And I said, I've got to fill these pages with these stories so that people who don't usually live the lives that me and Jay do can understand who these animals are and how they behave and who they're meant to be. Jay and I have seen extraordinary things. And the book is called Cow Hug Therapy, one, because I think cows are so therapeutic, and two, because cow hug therapy is actually a therapeutic modality that we use at the Gentle Barn to heal hurting humans. But the book isn't just about cows, it's about other animals as well. But it's mostly about cows. And the reason is because I have seen cows do extraordinary things, and it's my belief that cows are everything that we should be and will be once we awaken to love. So I'd like to read this passage. Cows offer us something unique and special. They are huge animals, so we cannot really make them do anything. Yet they are gentle, kind, and nurturing when they include us in their family. When they feel safe, they offer themselves up to love and heal us. The cows we have rescued and have had the privilege of knowing at the Gentle Barn have taught me my most valuable lessons about life, death, and everything in between. Cows are everything that people should be, and I hope will be one day when we fully awaken to love. Cows live together in a matriarchal family, led by the oldest and wisest female. She helps raise the babies, discipline the teenagers, grooms each member of her family every morning, and stays by their side as they leave their bodies behind. Cows are vegan and harm no other living being. Even their teeth and feet are designed to be gentle on the earth, leaving the pastures and fields the way they found them. Cows meditate every single day, connecting us to themselves and to each other. They face their troubles head on and problem solve their way around them. While some of our other animal species might initially reject newcomers out of fear and can even react in a violent way, cows are 100% inclusive, accepting anyone into their herd. Devotion to family and community is their most valued ethic. And while they are affectionate with each other, they practice self-care every day with an instinctual sense of well-being. This concept of self-care is something that I didn't start the Gentle Barn with. People would talk about it like, ooh, are you practicing self-care? You need work-life balance. And I'd say, I don't have time for that. And we were young. We were young and vibrant, and it didn't matter if we skipped our lunch breaks or didn't take vacation or just kept working 7 days a week. We just were on a mission. Now, 25 years later, my body's getting older, and I'm going, oh, okay, I'm tired. And my first reaction to that was frustration. I was really frustrated with my body. Like, keep up, get with the program, we still don't have time for this. But I had to start practicing self-care, and it was really the animals that taught it to me. Animals don't sit there and say, oh, I gotta keep working. They eat when they're tired, Sorry. They rest when they're tired, they eat when they're hungry, they drink when they're thirsty, they love one another, and they take the time to recharge their batteries. And watching these animals in our barnyards, it's really, really clear that to animals, the work is just as important as the rest. And that was not a concept that I had entertained before, but it's a concept that by necessity, we are trying to try on now. To take a little bit of rest, to recharge the batteries, because the more we can care for ourselves, the more we can give to others. And that's something that cows and animals embody every single day. So like I said, I've seen animals do extraordinary things. And one of the things that I talk about in my TED Talk and write about in this book is the way they celebrate birth. We had an extraordinary opportunity. We rescued a cow who was separated from her baby, and Jay did an extraordinary retrieval of that baby and a reunion in our barnyard. And we thought that was where the story ended. They would live happily ever after at the Gentle Barn for the rest of their lives. And 8 months later, one of our staff came to us at the end of the day and said, you know, tonight when you do your rounds, go check on Karma. And I said, why? What's going on? And they said, well, her udders are full. And I said, oh my God, do you think that she has an infection? And they said, no, I think she's about to have another baby. And we said, well, that's impossible. We rescued her with a tiny baby. She's still nursing him. And they said, well, just check her out. So that night, and every night, we do our rounds in the barnyard where we check on all the animals before bedtime. We count the chickens and the turkeys on their roost to make sure that they're safe and sound. We give cookies to the horses and cows, making sure they feel good and that there's no kind of undetected illness before we go to bed. We cover the pigs with blankets, and we give treats to the goats and sheep. And on this particular evening, it was me that went to the cow pasture to check in on the cows. And Karma was right there staring at me like she had been waiting for me. So I said, Karma, what's going on? The guys are worried about you. And she turned around and there was a foot sticking out of her. And I'm like, oh my God, they were right. She's having a baby. So I ran up and I said, Jay, we're having a baby. Woke the kids up. We all went down to the cow pasture.
You can imagine how that was for me. Guy's natural reaction.
And when we got down to the cow pasture, that's when we saw the magic of what these cows do for one another. When we got down to the cow pasture, all 20 of our cows were formed in a perfect circle around Karma. And she was in the middle, and she was laboring and contracting and pushing. And so me and Jay and the kids took our place in the circle, and we all watched as Karma had this baby, as she cleaned him up and dried him off, as he struggled to walk and learned to nurse, and nobody moved for 2 hours. And then once he had figured out how to nurse and he had drunk his fill and he laid down to sleep off his birth, then simultaneously the cows broke the circle and formed a single file line in front of this baby. And once the line was completely formed, the first one in line went over and licked him and sniffed him and said hello, moved off. The second one, the third one, the fourth line, every member of that family took a turn peacefully and easily welcoming that baby into the world. And then we all sat down under the moon and watched him sleep. And we realized in that moment we were a part of a sacred birth ritual for this tribe of cows. And we were so honored to be a part of it. And we have seen that circle time and time and time again. We had another story, so it's also about Karma. So Karma went on to not only have the baby that she was reunited with when we rescued her, but then this second baby that we named Surprise. And she got to raise both her sons at the Gentle Barn. Now, she was tiny and her cows were enormous, and she outlived both of them. So she had to say goodbye to them. But there was a time when she became the matriarch of not only her 2 sons and her family, but of the whole tribe. And we had another cow named Witness. And Witness, one day I got a call from our staff, Witness isn't doing well, you gotta come out right away. Of course, I went to see her right away. She was on the ground on her side groaning, which is not good. So I immediately called the vet. The vet said they'll be there as soon as they possibly can. And while we were waiting for the vet, all of the cows that we had at the time formed that same circle around Witness. And once the circle was fully formed, Karma, the matriarch, stepped forward. She rested her chin on the back of Witness. She closed her eyes and she stayed there for several minutes. And she paid her respects and she said goodbye. And she shared whatever she needed to share with Witness that was private between them. And once she was satisfied and done, she stepped back, and the one next to her took their turn, and then the next one, and the next one, until every single solitary cow had said farewell to Witness. And when they were all done, they went off to eat, and they left me to take Witness the final steps to the other side. We have seen young cows lose their mothers. We have seen siblings, kind of have one pass away. And every time there is grief in our barnyard, those cows come with the same circle to surround one another, to embrace one another, to eat beside one another, to meditate with one another, and to be there in that circle until that grief is gone and the person is restored, or the cow is restored. They're an incredible culture. And this book is filled with stories like that. So I want to tell you about what actually cow hug therapy is. So at the Gentle Barn, we want to show the world who the animals are. We want to show the intelligence, the affection, and the magic of these animals. And we want people to realize who they are and what steps we can take as individuals to protect them, to respect them, and to help them thrive in a more decent way. But we also have healing modalities for hurting humans. We want to save animals, and then once the animals are ready, we partner with them to heal hurting humans. And so we actually have a healing modality called cow hug therapy. And traditional therapy is amazing because if we're willing and brave enough to talk about what we've been through, we can sort through those experiences, we can talk about them, we can cry about them, we can kind of find the hidden gems of knowledge within our trauma, and then we can move forward better for it. But when we're not ready or willing to talk, when we're too shut down, when we're too angry, when we don't remember our trauma, or when we're grieving, and there's not really much to talk about, we're just hurting, then sometimes talking therapy stalls out. And that's where cow hug therapy can really help, when people can come without words, without thoughts, and just rest against the side of our gentle giants, feel their energy, clear our minds of thought, be immersed in present time, get grounded and get centered, and feel a feeling of healing and unconditional love and nurturing, unlike anything else. So I want to read a little bit about cow hug therapy. And the pages of this book are filled with lots of stories of hurting humans and the way that cows and our other animals have saved them. A husband and wife came for a cow hug therapy session after losing a nephew in a tragic car crash. Feeling devastated and lost along with the rest of their family, they thought the peacefulness of the Gentle Barn could help. Rachel was having an exceptionally hard time processing her grief. She had a large, bright personality with a tough exterior that hid her real feelings. She talked a mile a minute, moved very quickly, had a lot of energy, and did not know how to connect with or process her grief at all. In stark contrast with the cow's giant, grounded, still, and quiet energy, this grief-stricken woman found it impossible to sit still and give in to the cow's therapeutic presence. One of the wonderful things about cows is that no matter how somebody shows up, whether they have a disability with jerky movements, whether they're in a wheelchair or a stroller, whether they're depressed or anxious, the cows don't change their behavior or demeanor. They just hold steady to who and how they are. Another good lesson for us. Madonna is one of our largest cows. She is black and white with a massive frame and gentle energy. As Rachel kept talking nonstop, gesticulating with her hands and moving all over the place, Madonna held still. Her eyes were closed, her face was pointed directly ahead, and her mouth was rhythmically chewing her cud. She didn't even swish her tail. She was offering this woman a safe space to land and find herself. I brought Rachel over to Madonna, and as she was talking, I would quietly nod, encouraging her to relax and be silent. Over the next few minutes, her rattled speech slowed down, her arms rested on her lap, her facial expression softened, and she started to come to a centered place. I asked her to please rest her body on Madonna's giant frame and put her face against Madonna's soft and fuzzy side. Every now and then, Rachel would tilt her head up and start talking again, but I would just gently encourage her to put her face back on Madonna and close her eyes. She finally found that sweet spot of surrender that all of our guests eventually find in cow hug therapy, where thoughts vanish from the mind and emotions vanish from the body. She dropped away from doing, thinking, and moving, and into vulnerability, openness, and being fully present. After about 15 minutes of resting against Madonna, Rachel moved in front of her and lay on the ground underneath Madonna's head. She just stayed there, head resting on the ground, hair tossed in the sand, arms extended out to each side, legs splayed out, eyes closed, and a soft expression on her face for the first time. She gave herself to Madonna, to Mother Earth beneath her, and to Father Sky above her. She fully surrendered. Her husband whispered in my ear that this was the first time he had seen her still and quiet in years. When the session ended, the woman I said goodbye to was completely different from the one I had met an hour before. She seemed connected to her real feelings instead of deflecting, avoiding, or defending. She was present, grounded, authentic, and beautiful. And that's just one of the examples that cow hug therapy does. So many of you work with us or volunteer for us or have visited. So I'm imagining many of you know this story, but I couldn't exactly do a book signing in St. Louis without talking about what chapter is this? Our 6th chapter, which is dedicated to the St. Louis Six. So as many of you know, the St. Louis Six, 7 years ago, were 6 cows that were inside a slaughterhouse. And the leader, Chico, looked around, knew exactly what was about to happen, and said to himself, this is not going to be where our story ends. And he rewrote his story. He crashed through 3 fences, which doesn't even seem possible, and led the other 5 cows to follow through the streets of St. Louis. Of course, it got national media attention, and people went out of their houses and lined the streets and started chanting, Chico, 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 which is how Chico got his name. By the end of the day, they were rounded up and sent back to the slaughterhouse. But by then, so many people had seen their flight to freedom that they started calling the meatpacking plant, demanding that they live. So finally, the owner said, okay, fine, I'll release them to a sanctuary, because there was a group of people in the community that started to go fund me and raised their freedom money. So we could purchase their freedom, and the owner agreed. And we were watching this from California saying, okay, this is where, someone's gonna come get them and this is gonna be great. And we watched as the days passed, nobody came to get them. And finally, 4 days later, the owner announced, I'm done waiting, I'm gonna process them in the morning. And Kelly and David Backus called us, who he's a famous hockey player from St. Louis. They're very connected to this community. Other people reached out saying, please don't let them die for nothing. And let me explain to you why no one showed up. There's an ethic, which we actually agree on, principle in sanctuary life, that we don't want to pay money into the same system we're trying to end, right? So as a sanctuary, we're trying to help people gently go vegan. We're trying to end the meat and dairy industry. We're trying to support the vegan movement. And so why would we take money and pay it to a slaughterhouse and support them, right? So Jay and I had a hard time with this decision because we agree with that principle, but at the same time, the funds are there, the owner is willing to release them, and they're literally gonna die for no reason. And at the end of the day, Jay and I could not live with ourselves allowing them to die in this fashion. And I think principles are really, really important, but to stand on that principle and watch them die is something we couldn't live with. And so Jay got on a red-eye flight, flew to St. Louis, got there in the morning to stop their slaughter, took them out of the slaughterhouse to the hospital to get them treated for all their injuries and wounds. And then once they were fully healthy, found a foster home for them where they can live until we kind of figured out what next steps were. And we had offers from people saying, well, I have a back 40, we can take them, or, oh, we have a very small sanctuary, if you pay for them for the rest of their lives, we can take them. But they weren't local offers. They were offers from 5 to 8 hours away. And so in order to really verify if they were good options for these cows, we would have to go and visit all of them and interview the people and do home checks. And it was a tremendous responsibility to kind of determine, okay, what happens with these 6 cows for the rest of their lives. And so I decided that it was time for me to meet them. And went to St. Louis with Jay, got out of the rental car, walked to the fence of the foster home, and all the cows were in a line about 150 feet away watching us. And when I arrived at the fence, I said, Chico, may I speak with you? And Chico walked 150 feet until he was standing in front of me. The other boys stayed where they were. And he was so incredibly powerful and wise and larger than life. And he was standing right in front of me, staring right into my eyes, that I dropped to my knees and I started weeping. And if I wouldn't have freaked out the people that were there with us, I would have bowed at his feet. But I was trying to hate myself.
Whatever. They saw you.
And we locked eyes and I was weeping for 20 minutes. He didn't meander off, he didn't get distracted, he didn't try to graze on the grass. He was staring into my eyes for 20 minutes. And when I could finally compose myself, I looked over my shoulder at Jay and said, they've come with a story to share with the world and we need to help them. And as soon as I said that, Chico licked his lips and walked away. And Jay worked tirelessly to find a beautiful property here and open a gentle barn in St. Louis as home to the St. Louis 6. I'll never forget the process of working with them to forgive and working with them to forget and working with them to learn to trust. We were there opening that location with our volunteers, with these lots of amazing people in this room to put in the fences and bring the St. Louis 6 home and rescue and care for many, many more animals. And for those first 3 months, I spent every single morning sitting down in their pasture, meditating with them, singing to them, reading out loud to them, and they would look at me going, oh my God, we got the weirdest stalker. And they just kept looking like, can you leave now? But I brought cookies with me, which they eventually started looking forward to, and instead of gobbling up the cookies once I left, they started greeting me to get the cookies. And then that kind of very slowly led to me being able to feed them and pet them and hug them. But, you know, we have a cow named, one of the St. Louis 6 is Houdini, and he's a beautiful red cow with a white face, and he's very curious. He's like a giant golden retriever. He's very, very curious and very gentle. And when they were still in the foster home, once I had met Chico and we realized we had to start a sanctuary for them, there was a day where I actually went into their pasture and meditated with them, trying to show them like who we are and that we mean them no harm and trying to talk to them. And Houdini wanted to come over and lick my head in the worst way. He was like, oh, just let me lick her. And Chico said, absolutely not. People are not to be trusted. And so I knew when we finally brought them home to the gentle barn that to gain their trust, I had to start with Chico. So I would do this visualization every single day where I would close my eyes and I would visualize a cord between him and the slaughterhouse. And I would visualize me holding a giant pair of scissors and cutting that cord and letting the energy go back into his body. And I did that over and over and over again every single solitary day. And then one day he came up to me and took a cookie out of my hand. And I was like, it worked. And so then he learned to forgive and he learned to trust, and then all the boys followed suit, and he finally gave Houdini permission to lick my head. But the boys went on to do something miraculous. The boys went on not just to forgive and learn to trust and live happy lives, but the boys went on to pay it forward to other hurting humans. And people come, sometimes, they travel for days. They drive for 15 hours. They come from all over the world and the country to gain access to these incredible St. Louis 6 boys. And these boys wrap their necks around them and they hold them. Grieving mothers weep into their shoulders. People that suffer from depression or anxiety find themselves in the pasture with these cows. And these cows breathe the life back into these human beings. And it's a miracle to watch every single time. So I will, where did my glasses go? Oh, I will read this passage. From Chico and his brave brothers, a powerful life lesson was sent to millions of news viewers and social media followers around the world, and to our guests. That we each have to take a bold chance to get ourselves out of an experience that is bad for us. We might be afraid to break away from others and out into the unknown, but staying will only result in our demise. Even if it's not a physical death, we will die spiritually. We don't have to have all the answers about our future. We need only the first step of courage to save ourselves. Knowing what we do not want gives us all a better idea of what we do want. It is through bad relationships that we design our dream partnerships. It is from being in bad working conditions that we create our dream jobs. It is from suffering that we develop empathy for others. It is from experiencing challenges that we come up with solutions. If cows inside a slaughterhouse can dream of a life at a sanctuary and attain it, then anything is possible for the rest of us. Dare to run toward the life you want. When I started the Gentle Barn, I knew that with every single hello and greeting and welcome of a new animal would come shortly after, several years later, with a goodbye. Animals have a shorter lifespan than we do. And I didn't factor that in when I opened the Gentle Barn. And those painful goodbyes brought us to our knees. And I had to learn a different way of seeing death. I had to learn how to walk animals home effectively. I had to learn when it's appropriate to grieve and how to grieve. I had to learn how to work my way from grief to gratitude, and how to know that even though they leave their bodies, our animals don't ever leave us. And all of those lessons and more have been taught to us by the animals in this book. And I'm hoping that they're lessons that have restored us, that have kept us going, that have allowed us to grieve and get up again. I'm hoping that they inspire you too, and do as much for you, and I know they will, as they have for us. Thank you for reading, and thank you for being at the Gentle Barn and loving animals with us. Thank you.
So we have plenty of time for questions.
Oh, should I just stand here?
And I will pass the mic so that people online can hear the question as well. Any questions?
Yeah, if you have any questions about the Gentle Barn, about the book, about the animals, about cows, anything.
I actually have one. Okay.
Obviously I've been a part of these stories, and I've watched you through the process of developing a book like this. What is it about this subject that meant so much to you, and why this? Why did this, why is this so important as opposed to other, why not a horse, and why not a, dog therapy? Why not, why cows?
Oh, why cow, like cow hug therapy?
Yeah.
I have So when I can't sleep at 2 in the morning and I'm tossing and turning, this is what I think about. I think about why cow hug therapy? I think about why are cows so special? That's literally like what I think about. And I've come up with a lot of theories. Obviously they're unconditional loving, right? They're unconditionally loving. As we've already discussed, they're matriarchal and they're vegan and they're kind, and the way that they come together as family is extraordinary. But I've come up with one other theory that I think is my best theory. You know when we're infants and we're held on a caregiver's chest and we can hear the thump thump of their heartbeat and it kind of slows down our own, and we rise and fall with their breathing, and we feel tiny and small and vulnerable in their giant protective nurturing embrace. That's where healing lives, and that's where hope lives, and that's where infinite possibilities live. We're tiny. The world could be anything we dream of. Then we grow up, and all our animals have something to offer us. Stay with me. You know, we cuddle with our cats, and we hug our dogs, and we walk our horses, and we love our animals. But for other animals, other than cows, we're in a leadership position. We're the one walking the dog or walking the horse or holding the cat, or we're still in a leadership position. They're healing, they're restorative. Every single animal has a way to heal us and something to teach us. But there's something very unique about cows in that they weigh 3,000 pounds. And so we are not in a leadership position. And if you think you are wrong. Dealing with living with cows, that is the first thing that we need to own. We are not in control. And that helps us become vulnerable. It helps us become humble. It helps us to feel small. And then when we rest against them, it's that same feeling. We can feel their heartbeat. We can rise and fall with their breathing. And we feel tiny against that giant protective frame. And that's where hope lives. And so no matter what we've gone through, we can return to cows again and again and find that hope. And that's why cows. I guess we could do elephant therapy. We just don't, our barnyard's not big enough. Maybe one day we'll incorporate elephants too. I don't know. Thank you for asking that. Cows are very, very unique and special.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is, how did you discover cow hug therapy? Who was the first cow that you hugged, and what was that moment like, and what made you want to bring it to other people?
Thank you so much for asking that question. And by the way, Christine is our location manager. You just worked a very long and very sweaty day, and I am so grateful that you're here. It means so much to me. Thank you. But thank you for asking that question. So yeah, I started life probably like you guys, having no idea about cow hug therapy. I had never experienced it before. I knew nothing about it. But 25 years ago, we got our first cow, and her name was Buddha. And that very first Sunday that we were open to the public, I knew she was very special. I was watching her closely because she was a brand new animal, and we had guests coming, and I didn't know if she'd feel afraid. I don't know if she would want to withdraw. I didn't know if I had to protect her, stand in front of her and ask people not to pet her. And the minute the crowd entered the barnyard, she literally immersed herself in the middle of the crowd, laid down and beckoned to everybody to pet her. So I was like, wow, she is no ordinary cow. But later that night is when I found out just how extraordinary she is. It was a big day, lots of people. I was worrying about how to fundraise for the Gentle Barn, how to get a nonprofit off the ground, how to roll out our programs. There was a lot going on, right? So I went out to check the barnyard to say goodnight to all the animals before I went to bed. And I counted the chickens and turkeys on their roosts, and I covered the pigs with blankets, and I gave everybody cookies just to make sure that they still had an appetite and they were healthy before I went to bed. And walking across the barnyard, about to exit into my backyard and then my house, was Buddha. And I went to kind of pat her on the head and kiss her goodnight. And there was something about the way she looked up at me she was asking for me to stay longer. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can stay longer. And I sat down next to her and I kind of leaned against her back, or her shoulder, just because it was comfortable. And she wrapped her neck around me and held me. And listen, I've been rescuing animals way before the Gentle Barn started. I started as a child. And I've had dogs follow me around. I've had horses choose to be with me. I've had lots of encounters with lots of different kinds of animals. But she wasn't just following me around or loving me or letting me love her. She was healing me. She wrapped her neck around me and held me. And I burst into tears, not even realizing how stressed out I was. And it just washed out the day, and it kind of set me back to neutral, and it strengthened me for the next morning. And since that night, I came to rely on those hugs every single night. I was like, okay, where's my hug? And she would hug me every single night. And it wasn't until a few weeks later that I realized, okay, I can't hoard these hugs to myself. There's other hurting humans out there and they need them too. And so we started calling drug and alcohol rehab centers, domestic violence shelters, probation camps, foster agencies, schools for the disabled and special needs. Anyone out there that was hurting, and invite them to come out and get that incredible cow hug and meet the other animals. And they did. And that's how cow hug therapy was born. I like to refer to Buddha as the creator of cow hug therapy, and Buddha and all her story and many more details is chapter 2. Thank you for asking.
I'm wondering if there are other animals besides the 6 boys at the St. Louis barn.
Yes, oh my God, we have so many animals now. We have 3 horses that were actually rescued from being carriage horses in New York. And we don't yet have a Gentle Barn in New York, so they're living in Missouri for the time being. And they're stunning. I mean, they're so handsome, you won't even believe it. We have 2 donkeys. We have 4 farm pigs, which roll over belly rubs, and they're just beautiful. I watched them all afternoon slosh around in the mud hole. It's so cute. We have 6 potbelly pigs, 2 goats, a number of chickens. We have cuddle turkeys. We have beautiful, beautiful animals. And I like to say that we have not lived life to have hugged a cow or cuddled a turkey. So if there's anyone here that has not visited the Gentle Barn, please come and hug cows and cuddle turkeys and scratch goats and see the pigs wag their tails. It's just heaven on earth. Thank you for asking. The next question, apparently, gets a family pass. Oh. So think of something. Anything about the Gentle Barn or about animals or about world peace, but I'm still working on that theory.
So, Jay, are you still doing your cooking for?
Let her.
Let her do it.
Let her have the
No, let
mic.
her do it.
It wasn't about that, it was about, I want you to have the mic so you
Oh.
can hear you online.
Are you still doing the cooking just so people can get into plant-based, a lifestyle? Are you?
Good question. Question was, am I still doing cooking? So I developed a website that's able to be found through the Gentle Barn's homepage called My Gentle Kitchen. There's a lot of recipes there, why vegan, choosing different reasons, things like that. And my goal for this next coming year is to put together my cookbook. I finally got my proposal done, and so now I'll be seeking a publisher. So hopefully we'll be able to get that out soon. And Ellie and I are working to put together something that will be released soon to, again, start sharing some of the cooking classes. Things like that. So.
And for those of you that don't know, our animals are alive because of Jay. Jay goes into the darkest places on earth and pulls animals out of the jaws of death. And very grateful for what you do for the Gentle Barn and our animals, Jay.
Why do you call all of them cows, even the boys?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you so much for asking that question. and you'll both get a feather nest. I love that question. Okay, so here it is, and I love saying this, so thank you again for asking. In the industry, in the meat and dairy industry, cows are kind of organized with different terminology that ascribe economic value to them. So a bull is an unneutered male cow that can be used for breeding. A steer is a neutered male cow that can only be used for their flesh. A heifer is a young female that can be used for her breeding, but she's not been proven as a breeder, so there's some risk there to that industry. And then a cow is someone that has had many babies already. She's been proven as a breeder, but she's going to be older in age. At the Gentle Barn, we very specifically and on purpose do not use those terms. Because you know what the perfect example is? It's like calling a dog a bitch. So in the olden days, dogs were used to make money and breed and sell their puppies, right? And so you would have a stud, which is a male unneutered dog, and you'd have a bitch that was the female to breed. Nowadays, our dogs, first of all, spaying and neutering is common culture among us, and also they're family members. So we don't use those terms with our dogs. So for us at the Gentle Barn, it's the same as using those terms for our cows. Our cows are family. I'm not interested in their economic value because their value is as family members and healers and teachers and friends and amazing beings that they are. And so we just call them all cows. Yeah. Thank you for asking. That was a really good question. We get a lot of slack about that on social media because I'll post something like, oh, you know, our cow John Lewis, blah, blah, blah. And I've got like 55 experts that want to teach me how he's a steer. And yeah, we know, just call it all cows. Yeah, it's my baby. John Lewis is in this book also. And I would say every single animal in this book, I orchestrated it like by chapter. So each chapter is dedicated to a different animal and a different life lesson that they've taught us. And I'm very proud of these animals and the messages that they have for our humanity. And you know, I'll tell you something else. I think that we are living an unnatural life. We're living in this fast-paced, high-tech world. We're covering nature in cement. We're cutting down the trees. We're polluting the oceans. We're enslaving the animals. We're creating illness in our own body. Like, we are lost and we are messed up. Cows are also living a very unnatural life. They are supposed to live the way that they do at the Gentle Barn. They're supposed to have a matriarch. They're supposed to have a big, huge family with cousins and brothers and uncles and sisters and moms and dads. They're supposed to fall in love and stay together for their whole lives. They're supposed to care for one another. And they're supposed to be amazing and inclusive and thoughtful and meditative and gentle. And they're living an unnatural life in this world that we've created for them, where babies are taken away from their moms and husbands and wives are separated and families are torn apart and they're not allowed to live the way that they are supposed to. But at Sanctuary, at the Gentle Barn, the cows are finally able to demonstrate who they are, how they live. And they get to sit and hold space for the rest of us to kind of return to who we once were. You know, hundreds of years ago, we were exactly like cows. We were matriarchal, right? The medicine woman would go out and bring plant medicine. They meditated. We came together as a community and formed probably the same circles for birth, death, and grief. We were exactly like cows. And we've strayed and we've gotten lost and we've become a very modern society that has a lot of ill effects on the earth and our bodies and animals. And cows are kind of like a mirror image of who we used to be and how we need to be in order to bring things back into balance, to save this Mother Earth and have reverence for her, to heal our bodies, to set the animals free and learn from them, and to become just one little microcosm in the web of life instead of destroying it all. And I believe that That's why it's so important that sanctuaries exist, because it is the model for how animals are supposed to be, and it's the model for all of us on where we can return to when we're ready to awaken to love.
Last chance for questions.
So kind of, wow, I've never used a microphone. Along those lines, I imagine you see a lot of beauty, but also a lot of hardship. How do you stay sane and loving when there is so much that has to be done? So
Yeah, great question. Especially Jay. Jay has seen things that we shouldn't even be able to discuss, let alone see with the human eye. And I've been beside Jay when he wakes up in the middle of the night crying or screaming out. There have been very hard roads that we've both traveled on. I'll tell you that in the first year of the Gentle Barn, I said to when I kind of started experiencing my first couple deaths, and this was my dream since I was 7. So I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna feel so good. And I finally started the Gentle Barn, and I'm like, oh, it's just cupcakes and rainbows and violins and unicorns, and it was wonderful. And it was all those things, but it was also really hard because we still come up against the evil that humans are capable of. And sometimes animals come to us and we're like, don't worry, we're gonna make you better, you're gonna have the best life. And those animals don't make it, and they don't get the living apology that we wanted to give them. And it's harder to rationalize those moments. It's kind of a little bit easier when animals come from horrific circumstances, but then they get to transform and they get to live beautiful lives and they get to die in our arms, 20 years later. But when animals come to us as babies and we can't heal them, we can't fix it, we can't give them that living apology, those are hard moments. Or just a simple fact of, Jay pulling out animals, but leaving hundreds behind. It's awful. So in the first year of the Gentle Barn, I said to myself, okay, I made a mistake. I'm an absolute idiot. I am not strong enough for this. I am not brave enough for this. I am not wise enough for this. I quit. And obviously, I couldn't quit. I had animals that were depending on me, and I don't know. I couldn't think of one other thing that I could possibly do. Like, not even one. My parents were like, there's got to be a B plan, a plan B. I'm like, there literally is not a plan B. I only have one plan. So my next question was, okay, well then how am I gonna survive this? How am I not gonna let this eat me alive? And I was very profoundly, I think Jay and I were both really, really profoundly affected by a woman that visited the Gentle Barn. For the life of me, I can't remember her name. Jay, help me. She was an undercover investigator inside slaughterhouses. I have to think of her name. She was amazing. And she literally was inside slaughterhouses watching thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pigs be brutally murdered. And she came to the Gentle Barn and she met our pig, Susie Q, who had escaped from Farmer John's, which is one of the biggest slaughterhouses. And she was stroking her belly and she started crying. And we said, what's going on for you? And she said, I have seen probably up to 1 million pigs be butchered. I've never rubbed a belly until today. And Jay said to her, how does that work not affect you? How do you survive? And she said, I'm not surviving. I'm going blind. My body is literally saying I can't see anymore. And she went blind. So after that, I said, okay, how are we going to survive this? And I came up with 5 things that help me keep my sanity, or at least some of it. I don't know if I have all of it. And those 5 things are, I vowed to spread my message gently. And I think it's really, really super easy for vegans, for animal lovers, animal activists. Like, once we know what we know, we want to go out in the streets and shake people. We want to just shake them, right? And obviously that's ineffective to the person, but it's also ineffective for us, because at the bottom line is, I'm not doing this work, Jay and I are not doing this work because we're angry, because we hate people, because we hate life, because we hate this world. We're doing this work because we love people, and we love animals, and we love this world, and we want to create more gentleness and more peace and more kindness. So you can't create peace, gentleness, and kindness by being angry and hateful. It doesn't work that way. You can only create peace, kindness, and gentleness with peace, kindness, and gentleness. So I said, I don't care if it kills me, I'm gonna share my message gently. The second thing that I came up with was, once I share, or we share our message gently, we need to lose attachment to the outcome. Because people would come to the gentle barn and hug cows and cuddle turkeys and hold chickens, and we would have this wonderful experience, and then they'd go out and eat an animal. And I'd be like, what? Weren't you listening? I'd be really mad. And there again, it was this anger, and it was this stuff inside of me, and I didn't want to live that way. That's the stuff that was going to destroy me. So I said, we are all evolving at our own pace. We are all on our own place on this journey. And what someone else does or when they do it is none of my business. I need to bless people on their way and lose attachment to the outcome. The third thing that I came up with was to set really, really clear boundaries. Some people are motivated by slaughter footage. Some people are crippled. Some people love getting together and complaining. Some people get really downtrodden with that. So I had to spend some time really soul searching on who I was, and what are the things that empower me, strengthen me, and inspire me, and what are the things that take me down. If I look at a kind of graphic picture or video, I'm telling you, I'll be on the floor in a fetal position for 3 weeks, and I will be 100% ineffective. That does not work for me. So I had to come up with the things that I had to protect myself from. And I had to be very deliberate on the accounts I follow on social media, and only follow the ones that inspire and uplift me. The people that I want in my life, the people that will cheer me on and encourage me, and the people that kind of drag me down, taking little small bites. So I set really, really healthy boundaries to protect myself, because I can't afford to be taken down. The fourth thing was to celebrate the victories. You know, I think all of us that are so hopeful and determined for a peaceful and beautiful world, we look up the mountain at how far we still have to go, but we seldom turn around to see how far we've come. And there's victories every single day, and we have to allow ourselves to celebrate them. And the fifth and final way that I stay somewhat sane is I do a meditation every single morning for no more than 5 minutes. If I do it longer, then it won't become sustainable. So I actually set my alarm for 5 minutes. And I do a meditation visualizing and feeling and immersing myself in the world I want to create. And so everything for the rest of the day is born out of those vegetable gardens and the orchards that I can see in my mind, and the horses running free, and the clean ocean and thriving marine life, and everything I want to picture in my mind of the world that I want to live in. I picture it, I taste it, I touch it, I smell it, and then the rest of the day is born out of that vision. Thank you for asking. Who is ready for me to sign some books?
Yes, we all are. So Cow Hug Therapy is available for sale at the front desk. We'll be happy to help you. And then you can form a line along here for signing, and I'll come along and do a post-it so that Ellie knows how to spell your name.
Oh, that's wonderful, thank you. Also, this book makes great gifts. So if you already have one, you can get something to give to people, but I would love to sign your books for you.
Thank you for coming. Have a good night.
That's a great idea. So I'm going to grab